Hello and welcome to the orientation webinar for individuals interested in presenting at the 24th Annual Nonprofit Conference on Sustainability Strategies. My name is Ann Byrne, and I'm a professional in residence at the ASU Lodestar Center for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Innovation. This webinar provides important background information for potential presenters in developing and proposing workshops for our annual conference. We appreciate your interest in serving as a workshop presenter for the conference. The theme of this year's event is Make It an Inside Job, Unlocking Success Through Internal Innovation. We seek to integrate the themes throughout all the workshops, and the purpose of this webinar is to share expectations for how this integration will work. The conference will be held on Thursday, October 20th from 8:30 to 4:30 at the Black Canyon Conference Center in Phoenix. Our theme is based on the emerging concept of entrepreneurialism, or applying entrepreneurial practices internally to create new solutions. Social enterprise thought leader Chris Fox describes entrepreneurs as intra-organizational revolutionaries, those who challenge the status quo and fight to change the system from within. Like entrepreneurs creatively take risks to turn the undervalued into opportunities. Author John Cotter suggests organizations can enhance innovation from within by utilizing dual operating systems, with both a traditional hierarchy that operates alongside an innovation network. At this conference, we seek to engage attendees in an entrepreneurial dual operating system of information sharing and the active experience of innovation. As a workshop presenter, you will play a key role in this effort by designing and delivering workshops that teach, model, and practice innovation across a broad range of topics. Like the dual operating system suggested by Cotter for organizations, we hope to embed a dual operating system in this conference where workshops include information sharing that's balanced with opportunities to engage in the innovative practice. Workshops will be organized into 3 tracks. The first is called Taking Care of Business, next is Stimulating Creativity, and the third is Innovation Practices. While there is an element of experience and expertise basis for the tracks, conference attendees can pick and choose from workshops across all 3 tracks. The Taking Care of Business track will focus on fundamental nonprofit practices. Stimulating Creativity will feature processes and practices to encourage creativity, and the Innovation Practices track will dive into organizational-wide issues of creating an innovative culture. We'll look with more detail into the suggested topics for each track in a few minutes. In order to incorporate the dual operating system of information sharing and the actual experience of innovation, workshops should not be lecture-based, but instead share information with an eye to immediate application of knowledge through an activity. The activities can be experiential, participatory, or facilitative. They can be whole group, small group, or individual, and should be responsive to adult learning theory. Ideally, we hope conference attendees will experience the process of innovation in the workshops and have the tools to apply the practices within their own organizations. By necessity, less content can be presented than in a typical workshop to make way for the active engagement. Presenters are encouraged to provide resource information so participants can access more content outside of the workshop. As a presenter, you're welcome to bring your own handouts to distribute at the workshop, or the Lodestar Center can make them available online. Let's turn our attention to suggested workshops in the first track, Taking Care of Business. A PDF of this presentation is available for download, so you will have access to the specific suggestions offered here. This track, like the name implies, focuses on the basic management and operational functions within nonprofit organizations. Within the context of this conference, organizations need to take care of the basic business of running a nonprofit organization in order to create space for innovation. In my experience at the center answering inquiries from organizations, I know this is a challenging issue for many organizations. The topics in this track include governance, program and organizational development, fundraising and resource development, evaluation and measuring impact, volunteerism, assessment, management, practices, and communication. This list is not intended to be exhaustive, so feel free to add your own interpretation. I'll give you a minute to read through some of the suggested topics. Now I'll show you an example of how a presenter could share information about a topic and incorporate an application activity. Let's consider the issue of measuring impact. If you were the presenter, you could start by sharing information on the components of an evaluation logic model. Next, you could present a case study of a fictional organization seeking to develop an evaluation process. With information and materials you provide, you would then facilitate the group in an effort to work through and develop or start the process of developing an evaluation logic model for the fictional organization. You conclude the workshop by sharing information on how to access additional resources and highlighting opportunities for application within organizations to create innovative solutions. To summarize, we're looking for workshops that balance content with the opportunity to practice and apply that new content to innovation. Now let's move to the second track, stimulating creativity, and some of the suggested topics, which include transformational leadership, strategic planning, visioning and creativity process, creative effective teams, intercultural development, mission-based resource development, journey mapping, and managing from the middle. This track goes beyond the basics of nonprofit management to take a deeper dive into process and practices that stimulate creativity and innovation. I'll give you a few seconds to read through the list of additional topics. As in the previous track, this list is not intended to be exhaustive, and we welcome your ideas for workshops appropriate to stimulating creativity. Now, one of the topics included here is visioning and creativity process. So the sample I'm going to provide you of the workshop is on Appreciative Inquiry. For those of you not familiar with Appreciative Inquiry, it's a 5-step process intended to create change by focusing on the positive. Through a very intentional process, a group or organization moves through the steps to define, discover, dream, and design change. In this example, information is provided on the process and steps of undertaking appreciative inquiry, and then workshop participants actually engage in one of the components, such as interviews of exceptionally positive moments or creating shared images of a preferred future. As a presenter, you would frame the activity with a relevant topic or scenario to facilitate participation and provide information and suggestions for application within organizations. You might consider soliciting a scenario of an organizational challenge currently experienced by a participant. The workshop would conclude with information on how to apply the practice of appreciative inquiry to stimulate innovation and direct participants to additional resources. Here again, we're looking to balance relevant content with applicable innovative practice. In this example, appreciative inquiry is an actual process used to drive innovation. Next, let's look at the third track, which is innovation practices. The topics in this track are intended to address organizational-wide or systemic issues of how an organization can create a culture of innovation. Some of the topics we suggest are generative governance, innovation organizational culture, research and development, matching innovation practices with stages of development, scaling and replicating innovation, financing innovation, and creating space for innovation within a hierarchy. Like the other two tracks, we welcome your additional suggestions of topics that would fit well within this track. The example I'm going to use here is on the topic of generative governance. A little background. In the book Governance as Leadership, Reframing the Work of Nonprofit Boards, the authors Richard Chait, William Ryan, and Barbara Taylor describe three types of governance, which are fiduciary, strategic, and generative. In generative governance, the board engages in deeper inquiry, exploring root causes, values, options, and new ideas. Generative thinking focuses on what problem are we solving to gain insight into organizational identity and purpose. Generative thinking provides board members the opportunity to lead as well as govern. So in this workshop, the concept of generative governance is introduced and participants are asked to engage in discussions on the issue in a generative manner. Now, this workshop would likely be interesting to CEOs and members of boards of directors who want to take their board meetings and board effort to a different level than they've experienced previously. So hopefully from this workshop, the definition of generative governance would be clear, and the process of engaging a board in generative conversations and generative decision-making would become clear. An organization could then get more information, perhaps engage in additional training on site about generative governance and how to transition from a more fiduciary or strategic governance function. So the facilitator in this workshop guides the discussion with facilitative questions and helps to frame issues so that people get that hands-on experience with what generative governance means. By this time, you should have a pretty good understanding of the types and styles of workshops that we're looking for the 24th Annual Nonprofit Governance Conference on Sustainable Strategies. Please remember that a standard lecture format is not appropriate for this conference. A few other issues to consider. Workshops can be either 60 or 120 minutes long. Your workshop topic must align with one of the three tracks, and it must include opportunities for active practice and engagement with the content. Remember that active engagement can take many forms, from individual to full group, and try to be sensitive to different learning styles and personality preferences. We've been fortunate to have had many excellent presenters in our past conferences, and we're confident that this conference will continue that tradition. We welcome your ideas for workshops of various topics aligned with our theme, and we're also soliciting facilitators to lead workshops of our own design. If you're an experienced facilitator and are interested in serving in this role, please indicate that in your application online. The process of proposing a workshop is relatively simple. It's an online form available at this address. You'll be asked to describe the workshop that you propose, as well as the active content and active process you'll engage. Proposals are due on August 10th, and while this is not a paid speaking engagement, it does provide an opportunity for exposure for you and your organization. Presenters will receive a reduced conference registration rate. Thanks for taking the time to participate in this webinar. We're looking forward to reviewing your proposals and creative ideas for workshops. Please feel free to contact me, Ann Byrne, for questions on workshop content. For logistical questions, please reach out to Jill Watch at the address here. I can't wait to see your very creative and innovative proposals, and I look forward to putting on a really outstanding conference with your help as excellent presenters. Thank you.